You are listening to The Evolved Masculine. Whether you are wanting more and better sex, more confidence, healthier relationships, or a greater understanding of and deeper connection to your masculinity, this is the podcast for you. I am your host, Destin Garrick. Hi, everyone. What a week. So I want to make sure that in addressing this whole pandemic that we're in right now, that I'm able to offer something of real value to each of you. That there are so many posts, seemingly every post, every news item, everything is about this COVID-19, coronavirus, the pandemic, self-isolate, social distancing. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it brings up a lot for a lot of people. Everything from panic, overwhelm, to denial. I understand, look, believe me, for those of you who are like, yeah, this is being way too much of a big deal is being made from this. I get it. Like, when it comes to distrusting the government or distrusting the media, I'm right there with you. Do not get me wrong there. And, I've been tracking this for about 6 weeks, and I started really preparing. I have a family, a young family, and I have a very strong protective drive that has amplified greatly since becoming a father. And so as these things start pinging the radar, initially, this Wuhan virus, this thing that's just like out there in China, and other people weren't really giving it much attention. Something just felt like this is concerning. Now, over this past week, every day, it's become clear, no, this is a very big deal. This is one of those incidences that are going to define our times. To what degree and what is that going to mean? Only time's gonna tell. But the world is going to be changed by this. That I feel pretty confident. One thing that I've learned, I've been doing this work, particularly while my work around sexuality has been over 20 years, my work has been specifically around transformation, growth, evolution for, roughly 10, 12 years. I feel like I've been a student of transformation. And one of the things that I've learned through working with so many people is that crisis is incredibly ripe opportunity for transformation. That generally when people come into my world, it is because they are in crisis. They have been feeling a sense of their world has hit a point where shit is changing radically. What was can no longer be anymore, but what is coming has not yet arrived. In my world, that's often, they just had a massive breakup, perhaps even a divorce. They just got fired or lost their job, or some sudden massive ending to their career. Sometimes it's a health crisis. Maybe they've just had this horrific sexual experience that was just the last one of a whole series of them that just led to this point of, fuck this, no more, something has got to change. Well, we are at a point very clearly right now where shit has got to change and is being forced on us from the outside. But this is often what happens in our lives individually or on a larger scale, that we get these little messages from the universe, so to speak. It can come first as like a little whisper in the ear, or sudden like a little intuition or sensation within of some change that needs to take place or some direction to go in. And sometimes we get very stuck in a way of being, a way of thinking, a way of showing up in life that keeps us from answering the call, so to speak. So we ignore the feeling, we ignore the voice, and we continue doing things as we've been doing them. And then that little whisper becomes the tickle. If we continue to ignore it, the tickle becomes a slap. If we continue to ignore it, it can be like a punch in the arm, a sock in the face, a 2x4 wallop in the head, a friggin' piano dropped on you from above, cancer, whatever it takes. The message just gets larger and larger, louder and louder, until it is impossible to ignore. It is also, though, why sometimes you hear people who speak of, for example, how getting diagnosed with cancer was the best thing that ever happened to them. Because suddenly this message that, quite honestly, generally speaking, was being ignored for a long time, finally got through. A message to wake up. I referenced in my post leading up to this live that in 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit, I flew down to New Orleans and then over to Mississippi, Waveland, Mississippi, to do volunteer work. In all honesty, in many ways, I was soul searching, but that's a conversation for another time. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot through showing up, being in service to others in a time of crisis. One, how in times of crisis, one of the best things that you can do is show up and be in service to other people. And that doing so can call you into a greater version of yourself. But I also learned so much about how people respond to crisis, about how it brings out both the very best in humanity and the very worst in humanity. And, you know, the worst in humanity aspects, yeah, it's a little concerning. You know, in these days, weeks, months ahead, we're likely to see some of the more worst elements of humanity showing themselves. And the things that you can do to be prepared, not panic, but be prepared for that, I think is very wise. But we also see incredible, like, what people are capable of, the ways in which people show up for one another. There were so many people that had flooded into those areas from all across the country, and some people even internationally, to care for, support total strangers. Acts of selflessness left and right. It's humbling. And I think that we will see more of that and versions of that as we move forward here as well. But I spoke of this as a transformational growth in a time of crisis. When people come to me in their own state of crisis, it's often a liminal period, meaning a space between worlds. Again, where the old world, the life as they knew it, no longer exists. What's coming isn't quite here yet. But in this space, so much is possible. So much is possible. We've been getting tickles and whispers in our ears for a really long time that our way of life is not going to be able to continue forever. That things need to change for the planet, for humanity, for everything living on it, for our evolution into our next level of consciousness. And there are those of us, often through our own personal crises, that have stepped into a newer way of doing things, a more expanded consciousness, a more expanded way of seeing things and engaging with ourselves and others, often as a result of personal crisis. Myself, the awarenesses that I hold today, the way I think and see the world, the care and compassion that I bring to it, it's been through pain. It's been through dark nights of the soul. It's been through coming to my end of where the way in which I was doing things and experiencing things was no longer sustainable, and something had to give, and give in a big way. That if I didn't make the change consciously, then the change was forced upon me externally. But one way or the other, change took place. And I do believe that we're just beginning to experience collectively a planetary version of that. There are changes that have been needing to take place. And collectively, we've been dragging our feet. And I believe that we're on a fast track to creating those changes. Because where we wouldn't do it willingly, it's being forced upon us externally. And so change, why do people resist change? Change can be scary. Can be scary. We know our life. We know our circumstances. Even if we don't like it, even if it's not working for us, many people tend to cling to things as they are because it's comfortable. At least I can somewhat make sense of my world. And it's taken so much for me to even understand how to kind of get by in this. Who knows what's coming next? And that unknown can be scary because it's like, what if it's even worse? What if what little I'm holding on by, I can't even do this? But change also brings incredible opportunity. And I know that, quite honestly, a lot of the people in my world, in the sphere, in my community, the people I spend a lot of time with, often the people who I attract into my world, many of us, we thrive on change. Tony Robbins speaks of the 6 human needs, and 2 of them being certainty and uncertainty, and how every one of us has the need for both of those. So certainty being the thing, that which we can be certain about, that which is comfortable. It's the reason why Wheel of Fortune's been on for 40 years and with the same hosts, and Jeopardy for that matter. It speaks to that certainty need. It's like, it's that old friend. It's always there. It's always there. I can predict it. I can rely on it. It gives me a sense of like, But then we also have that need for uncertainty or variety, that need for newness, something that exists outside of what we already know and have already experienced. And that is what causes growth and expands our sense of self, our worldview, allows for new possibility. We have a need for both of these things in our lives. And different individuals place those 2 needs one ahead of the other, or the other ahead of the other. And that difference, depending on which one it holds a higher priority for you, creates a completely different life path. So for example, my sister prioritizes the certainty need more than the uncertainty need. I've prioritized uncertainty throughout my life. And more recently, I'd say over the past 5 years, I have come to understand and recognize and value the certainty need much more. Not more than my uncertainty per se, but it's now a value for me. So I say this, that we need both of these things, but we're facing a lot of uncertainty. As best as I can, I want to encourage you to embrace that uncertainty to the best that you're able to recognize that in that uncertainty does lie opportunity. If we're honest with ourselves, almost all of us will recognize that this world is not the way that we know in our hearts it could be. That the sets of circumstances are not actually working for the majority of people. And even if for you and the people in your life, things are going pretty well, we live in the richest country on earth. I don't know how much traveling you've done. I've done a lot of it, and there's a lot of pain and suffering in the world. But the truth is, there's a lot of pain and suffering in this richest country of the world. And in fact, there's a lot of pain and suffering even amongst the wealthy and elite. I've worked with a number of them at this point. There are aspects of how we have structured our societies that simply are no longer functioning if they ever really were. I think there are those who are even rooting for some form of societal collapse because the pain of how things have been has been so great. Or there can even be anger and resentments for getting the shit end of the stick, so to speak, of the way things are. And can we really blame them? So if we have this opportunity when things are seemingly falling apart, where every day more aspects of our society are being shut down, the stock market is crashing, the restaurants are closing, bars are forcibly shut down, the elections are being postponed in some states and more are likely to follow, NBA games, NHL games, Broadway, on and on and on. Every day it's more and more. Are forced quarantines coming next? Is this, what do they call it? You get the idea. Every day, our society is coming more and more to a halt as it is. I don't exactly know where that's going, but I don't think that we've seen the height of it yet. I do believe that there is a good likelihood that we're going to see, quote unquote, like forced quarantining or forced seclusion for a period of time, probably starting with 2 weeks, and good likelihood extended beyond that. So the question is, what do we do with that, and how do we utilize that time in a way that's actually beneficial? There are a lot of people in fear. Gun sales and ammo sales have skyrocketed. That's fear. I watched Bill Maher speak about, so very American, I'm going to shoot the virus. That's not what it is. It's the fear of other people. It's the fear that so many people, especially speaking to our Americans present, that so many Americans have of each other. And we have grown that fear of one another so much over the past decade, and certainly over the past few years. We have our in-group and our out-group. The people who we see as more or less like us, and those that we essentially treat as the enemy. It's dangerous. Coronavirus doesn't care. Republican or Democrat, rich or poor, artist or prime minister, can strike any one of us and will likely strike many, if not most of us. It's an equalizer. When things get catastrophic, when things, it's sort of like pre-Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not come out of nowhere. And for those who seem to think that everything was fine before, maybe just weren't quite paying attention, or it didn't quite seem to affect you. But I'm of the sort that believes that the status quo is what led to Donald Trump, rather than that Donald Trump is a break from the status quo. And that we have this opportunity now with the massive chaos, et cetera, that Donald Trump's presidency has created. It's forced like a much greater introspection of who we are and how we're doing things and what we're wanting than most, even on the quote-unquote Democrat or progressive or what have you side of the spectrum, were really allowing for. Progressive politics has been advancing so rapidly compared to the previous 40 years of my life. And so I believe we're going to see very similar things in regards to this pandemic, is that we're going to see some difficulty and unfortunately also death. And we're going to see some advancements that were previously unheard of, that we did not view or believe were possible, or certainly in our lifetimes, or certainly not in the short span of time that we're likely going to end up seeing them. I do believe in the evolution of consciousness, that we as humanity, as the source consciousness itself, so for those who are not already like in that languaging, that the collective intelligence, the awareness that is inclusive of all of humanity's awareness, and possibly even that which is beyond humanity's awareness, itself is on its own growth journey. Some think of this as what God truly is that creative consciousness itself is on its own growth journey, its own expansion of its own consciousness, of which each of us are a part. And we are growing, we're evolving. And I do the work that I do because, I have to be optimistic to do the work that I do. I spent my 20s pretty fucking pessimistic. Certainly, as I went deeper and deeper into my various types of political activism and street activism, as I spent much of my 20s doing, and getting beat down by the police, having both my rotator cuffs torn and my cervical disc herniated by the sheriff's department, and witnessing extreme police brutality, which is a whole other conversation that I don't want to get into, long before most people were really even aware of police brutality and the extent of it. I became increasingly disillusioned. I just believe that the world is going to hell in a handbasket and there's nothing we can do about it. And that it's going to call for us to be increasingly radical in our efforts to do something, to wake people up, to what have you. And over time, I just felt increasingly disempowered. And in late 2004, after my major police brutality incident, the rotator cuffs and the cervical disc, and I went into an extreme psychological and emotional downward spiral, bottoming out, having that dark night of the soul, major dark night of the soul, while hitchhiking through southern Mexico, I had what I can only refer to as my spiritual awakening. A point at which I hit a point where everything that I thought I knew was up in the air. The only thing I knew anymore was that I don't know anything. I thought I knew it all. I thought I had it all figured out. I thought that I knew just like I had the answers and what needed to happen and all the things I have to do in order to make that happen. And if other people would just X, Y, or Z or wake up and do, then. And the only thing I knew anymore was I don't know anything. I don't know anything because look what all the things that I thought I knew, look what it brought me. I'm in incredible pain. I'm in incredible suffering. I'm completely lost. And I let go. And you could say that I surrendered to God, but at that time, I certainly didn't think in those terms. I was a self-identified agnostic-leaning atheist. I don't know if there's a God or not, but probably not. Whatever, essentially. But I let go. I gave up. I surrendered the hold that I had on everything, the hold that I had on my identity, the hold that I had on how everything is and how everything works. Crisis moments like this can thrust that upon us collectively. Thrust upon us this notion of, the world as we knew it ain't. The presumptions that we held no longer seem to make sense. Well, if we're letting go of those notions of life and how things work and how things should be, what does that open up? What opens up in that space? What new possibilities can we create? What new possibilities can we imagine? And so this is a collective journey, and this is an individual journey. There's a lot of talk about isolation, and to be honest, my family has already been on self-quarantining for 3 days, I think now, minus a quick trip to a store to pick up a couple more things. I'd really like to encourage you to make the mental shift that two people in my life actually brought to me, both Ruby Freeman, who's amazing and I now consider a soul sister, please do check her out, as well as Stefanos Sifandos, likewise, though much newer relationship I'm feeling as a soul brother. Both use this phrase independently from one another of isolation versus solitude. And that really is the shift that I'd really invite you to bring your attention into in these coming weeks or what have you. Is that if you're stuck home or what have you, to think less of being isolated, which can often feel very alone and lonely, and bring attention instead to solitude. Solitude has an element of choice in it. And even if it feels like it's thrust upon by external sources, you can still choose the reality that you are in. Choose this. Okay, this is what is. From here, okay, I can choose solitude. I can shift my mindset into feeling isolated, to being in solitude. So what I mean by that is alone time. A time to quiet shit down, to simplify life, to, if you share your home with others, to deepen those relationships. If you have a family, to spend much more time with that family, to deepen. Whether if you have roommates, how can you discover one another in new ways? What more that do you have to share with one another, or share to each other into each other's lives that maybe you've missed all this time of living together because you've been so busy with all the things? Been quieting it down, going inward. How can you deepen and open up space for what would have otherwise been missed? By the way, even though I'm monologuing, I've had one comment this entire time, and it was kind of a joke comment. So feel free to use this chat box. I like interaction. And I've been watching people joining, most of whom I have a personal relationship with. So I love seeing you all here, and you matter to me, and I hope my words are providing something of value to you. So solitude is also about learning to be with yourself. And this provides a challenge for a lot of people. That going into quiet can feel overwhelming. The mental chatter starts going like crazy. Maybe they're hearing, maybe the voice that they carry in their head isn't very friendly to them. Well, this is an opportunity to confront that. Because that voice in your head, you do have the capacity to transform, to cultivate a more positive and empowering voice, to act more as your friend rather than the voice that may otherwise seem like it's more of an enemy or saboteur in your life. We have so many tools available to us in our digital world, and I know it can be difficult sometimes to parse the noise from the value, and that there are so many. Everybody's got something to say, myself included. Everybody wants to be an influencer or what have you, and many of the people who have the most attention on them aren't necessarily adding something of real value into your life, especially at a time like this. So choose carefully what messages you're exposing yourself, what voices you're bringing in. Maybe spend less time online, or more specifically, be more intentional with your time online. Connect into community as it makes sense to you. whether it's things like this, where there's some sort of Facebook Live or webinar or something that feels like it's adding value to your life, or it's doing individual video calls with people who matter to you. But I really encourage you, invite you to take time to have intentional solitude, journal, free write, sit in meditation. If meditation is new to you, well, right, there are plenty of introductions to meditation that are available online. I'd invite you to find something that resonates for you. Learn to find stillness. There's incredible power in it. And then for the many of you who I know who know how to meditate, how often are you doing so? Maybe this is an opportunity to deepen in, to find that stillness. That stillness helps us be grounded and calm in the midst of chaos. And if we're ever going to need that, now would be that time. Now would be that time. Finding calm amidst the chaos. Over the previous few months, quite honestly, my wife and I have been going through some not insignificant relationship challenges. I think that I tend to relate to, honestly, as part of marriage. The container of marriage is powerful, and the times of discord can be just as full of growth as the times of great harmony, if not more so. But we've been facing some difficulties, and there were things that were causing us to feel like we were feeling great distance between us. And I gotta say, over the past week, we have been connecting more deeply with one another, even more so over the past few days. And I want to intentionally use this time to just be with one another, sometimes even without words. Just deepen into that connection. A sense of nothing needs to be said. Let's just hold space together. There can be something both soothing, deep, and powerful about simply sharing time and space. Which leads me to a bit of an announcement. If you're Facebook friends with my wife, Ellie, you might already know this. Otherwise, a couple handfuls of people in my personal life know. But here's my formal announcement. My wife is 11 weeks pregnant with our second child. And so it's particularly interesting, I don't know the right word to put to it, to be on this creation of life journey in the midst of pandemic. As we're experiencing an uptick of death on this planet, we're focusing on bringing a new life in. As my wife put it, with contraction comes expansion. Expansion leads to contraction. These are the cycles of life. And so it does have me, that is very present for me in this whole what to do at this time that we're in. I really invite you to use this time to dream into who do you want to be in this world? Life is precious. Our catastrophe, crisis, whatever, gives us an increased focus on the preciousness of life. Life can be gone like that. Yours, mine, someone you know, love, can be gone like that. And I hate to say it. It's very possible. Oh, all these messages came in. I didn't notice. Finally, get you guys to speak. All I needed to do was announce that we're having a baby. The life is precious. use yours intentionally. I know that whoever you are, however you've been living your life, there's an opportunity for something newer, something greater to rise up from you. And I believe that moments of crisis do just that. They call us to step into something greater that we are capable of being. That's my invitation to you. That's my challenge to you. To the men that I work with and within my book, I speak often about the lack of healthy male role models in the world, and how so many of us grew up feeling like we were missing the role model that we really wanted. So then I challenge you to become the role model that you wish you had. Because you continue to get older. However old you are, you continue to get older. There are those younger than you who themselves are looking, actively seeking, wanting, consciously or unconsciously, for that helpful, useful role model. It's not about being perfect. It's just about showing up, being real, transparent, committed to your integrity. I don't know what's ahead of us. I believe that we're going to experience challenges that we can't imagine. And there will be opportunities, beauties, and blessings that we can't see right now either. But this is your opportunity, first and foremost, to rise to the occasion. In the midst of crisis, who will you be? Who will you be in the midst of crisis? This is your opportunity to find out. You choose it. You will be challenged. Lean on others, lean on me, and be someone that others can look to and lean on. What can arise out of you that perhaps was a part of you that you had never even been in touch with within yourself, or maybe it's seen in other people, but oh, not me. Maybe that's for other people, but not me. Maybe it could be you, and maybe now is the time. So before I close this out, do you have any questions or thoughts you want to share? I use a chat box. In the meantime, I'm just going to quickly read through the messages that were here. A Costco package of toilet paper. I don't know how many that is. I find it all funny because like bidets and various water methods really are superior. Calm amidst chaos. Not entirely sure what that means. Presence is very powerful. A number of congratulations. I really appreciate it. It is a very exciting time for us. And absolutely intimidating, because this too, having a child in the first place, let alone a second child, it was like, this is a really good analogy here, because becoming a parent was massively transformational, massively challenged every notion that I had of who I was, what I thought I was, and what I was capable of, and what I thought I wanted, the priorities that I held, all flipped upside down in becoming a parent. As the way that I was doing things just no longer made sense anymore. They just did not make sense anymore, and I needed to restructure everything. And in so doing, my entire sense of self, my entire identity changed, and how I show up in the world changed along with it. Now, it's like, all right, let's do it again. On the plus side, I'm not just going from, single man to like being a husband and father, becoming a parent. Okay, I am a father now. There's always growth there, but I'm rooted in that now. It probably took me 2 years to feel like I had transitioned from like, okay, like I'm doing this, I'm becoming a father, I'm figuring this out, to like, all right, always more, but I am a father now. I'm not becoming, I am a father now. It's a rooted part of my identity now. Great. Now, let's do this again, only this time with a toddler in tow. Fuck. We barely held it together the first time. How are we going to do this? And yet we will. We will rise to the occasion. We will expand our capacity. And we'll become more. Our own awareness, our own consciousness, our own capacity of who we are, how we function in the world will grow and expand to include, now I'm a father of 2. Now I hold a family of 4 and a dog together. Now that is part of my identity and part of who I am. I will rise to this. I will be challenged by this. Those challenges don't go away. My daughter challenges me all the time. She also absolutely delights me all the time. The challenges will come. Some will knock me down. I'll pick myself back up. The challenges will come. Some will knock you down and you'll pick yourself back up. And there's an opportunity for you to grow and expand, to be able to handle, navigate, rise to these challenges, to become more of who you are here to be. James Upington wrote, the Chinese symbol for opportunity and crisis is the exact same symbol. Actually, my friend AG, relatively new friend, great man, said that crisis is these characters right here, where you can't see on the image here. Oh, here we go. It's danger and opportunity. Together, that's crisis. So, yes, there's danger and incredible opportunity. So, that's that. This is your opportunity. I don't know what that will mean for you. I don't know what it will mean for me. I've spent the past few days knowing that, okay, I've got to do something about this. Like, yeah, I've made a few like little posts here and there, but you know, I present myself as a leader, even a quote evolved masculine leader. Like, how am I going to show up in leadership in this time? This is my first step. I don't know what this moment in time is going to call for me either. But I'm going to heed the call to the best of my ability. And I invite you to do the same. It's okay to be scared, but don't lose yourself in that. You can be scared and still have courage. You can be scared and still be willing. Be willing. Find out what you're capable of. Open your heart. We're in this together. I believe in you. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Evolved Masculine podcast. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a comment to help other men discover this show and help the Evolved Masculine movement spread. It really does help. I want you to do more than simply consume content, but rather to embody a new way of being and radically transform your life for the better. Join us in the Evolved Masculine membership community, a brotherhood of men who are committed to being the best men that we can be. Crystallize a vision of your most evolved masculine self and implement the tools to take him out of the idea realm and begin embodying him now. Reprogram your sexuality and deepen your understanding of women and the feminine. Learn more and join us at evolvedmasculine.com/membership. I believe in you.